Part 51. Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 501. Li Jiancheng carefully analyzed the pros and cons of the plan proposed by Ren Zheng, and found that Ren Zheng's suggestion was indeed highly feasible. After all, as the eldest prince, he has long been familiar with how much his father and mother love their second brother Li Shimin, so he often feels jealous of his second brother. Even Li Jiancheng would sometimes wonder, considering his father's love for his second brother and his own abilities and ambitions, why didn't his father directly make his second brother a prince instead of making him king of Qin? Whenever Li Jiancheng thought about this question, a terrible answer would come to his mind, that is, his father knew how much he valued his position as prince and his succession to the throne. Therefore, the father was worried that if Li Shimin was directly appointed as the prince, he would retaliate against Li Shimin because of his dissatisfaction, causing conflicts or even wars between brothers, leading to fratricide. Therefore, the father first established himself as the prince to stabilize himself, perhaps until his father was about to die, or he had already drafted a will in advance. When he died, Li Shimin would directly inherit the throne. Although this is just Li Jiancheng's own guess, and there is not even a bit of reason or evidence to prove his guess, but this guess is like a poisonous snake, which often harasses him and makes him feel desperate. And now, Li Shimin was killed by himself. Perhaps he was not just killing his father's favorite son, but the heir to the throne of the Tang dynasty that he had already predetermined. Therefore, he had no way of guessing what kind of decision his father would make after learning about this matter. If no one can prove that he killed Li Shimin, then as long as he kills him and refuses to admit it, then he has nothing to say. But Liang Shitai happened to find out the truth, and he couldn't defend himself. Moreover, Ren Zheng had originally decided that if someone actually accused Li Jiancheng of killing Li Shimin, then he would be willing to take the responsibility on himself in exchange for Li Jiancheng's position as prince being more stable. But the problem now is that Liang Shitai has seen with his own eyes that Li Jiancheng killed Li Shimin himself, so even if he wants to blame the murderer on Ren Zheng, it is impossible. Therefore, after a short analysis, Li Jiancheng gradually accepted Ren Zheng's suggestions, began to sit down, think, and make the final decision. Everyone looked at Li Jiancheng nervously and a little excitedly, waiting for his final decision. At this time, the house became extremely quiet, and even a leaf falling on the ground could be clearly heard. Li Jiancheng also knew that no matter what he decided in the end, he had to make up his mind as soon as possible. Once done, Liang Shitai would definitely go to the palace and report the matter to Li Yuan as soon as possible. Just when Li Jiancheng was still wavering, the harsh voice of the eunuch suddenly came from outside the palace. Report to His Majesty the Crown Prince, Your Majesty has an order to inform you to go to Hanyuan Hall to discuss matters. Li Jiancheng was worried about his affair being exposed, and suddenly heard the eunuch. The voice made me tremble with fright, and I forgot to answer for a moment. When the eunuch who delivered the order saw that His Majesty did not respond, he spoke again. Your Majesty, Your Majesty, Your Majesty has ordered you to go to Hanyuan Hall to discuss matters. Please prepare quickly. No, only then did Li Jiancheng react. He was deeply moved. He took a breath, tried to calm down his mood, and then asked eunuch, Do you know why my father asked me to go? The eunuch who delivered the order looked at Li Jiancheng strangely, shook his head and said, Your Majesty didn't say that. I don't Euro trademark T even know, Your Highness, you will know when you go. That eunuch was the eunuch commander around Li Yuan. Under the influence of Li Yuan, Li Shimin was more optimistic about his sincerity and ability, so he was a little displeased with Li Jiancheng, especially seeing that he was taking his time at this moment. He spoke a little hastily. However, Li Jiancheng didn't know what the eunuch was thinking. He just thought that Li Yuan already knew about his killing of Li Shimin, so he wanted to let him into the palace and take him down. And the eunuch knew that his situation was over, so he was not so respectful to him. This can't be blamed on Li Jiancheng. After all, no matter who he is, he will always be particularly sensitive when he has done something wrong and is worried about being discovered by others. No matter what others say, he will always think of the wrong thing he has done. So Li Jiancheng was no exception, but he didn't show it. He just waved his hand and said, "Okay, I know. I will be here later. You can go back first." The eunuch even looked at Li Jiancheng's pale face. She was already breaking out in a cold sweat. She gave him a strange look and thought, isn't it just to enter the palace to meet His Majesty? How could he be so scared? However, he only took a glance and saw that there were many of the prince's confidants in the palace. He thought that he must have something to talk to these subordinates, so he turned and left without staying any longer. Wei Zheng watched the eunuch leave and felt a little secretly happy in his heart. It was true that when he fell asleep, someone would hand him a pillow. Presumably, with Li Yuan's message, Li Jiancheng must have thought that the matter was exposed and would definitely make up his mind to force him into the palace. Sure enough, after the eunuch left, Li Jiancheng's face immediately showed a fierce look, and he said to everyone, "It seems that I have no choice. Go and call the commander of the Yulin army." After everyone heard this, Li Jiancheng said he couldn't help but feel his heart beat faster after receiving the order. It seemed that His Highness the Crown Prince had indeed chosen Ren Zheng's second path and was preparing to ascend the throne directly. The commander of the Yulin army was also one of Li Jiancheng's supporters. After all, King Qin Li Shimin had many people who supported him, and as the prince, Li Jiancheng would not lack followers with military power. It's just that although this Yulin army follows Li Jiancheng, it is not included in Li Jiancheng's confidants, so it is not in the East Palace at this moment. Because he only sided with Li Jiancheng after Li Jiancheng was established as the prince. It can be said that he was just greedy for wealth. After all, the prince is the future emperor. Who else can he follow if he doesn't follow him? A quarter of an hour later, the commander of the Yulin army trotted all the way to the East Palace. After seeing Li Jiancheng, he hurriedly asked, "Your Highness, it's so late, what are your orders for calling the officials?" Li Jiancheng stared at Yulin. The commander of the army said word by word, "I will give you a stick of incense, and immediately summon all the Yulin troops under your command, and follow me into the palace." The commander of the Yulin army was stunned when he heard Li Jiancheng's words, and then asked what happened in the palace. Li Jiancheng replied, "It's nothing. It's just that I want to force the palace father to abdicate." Underscore. Fei Lu reminds you, 3 things about reading, collecting and recommending. 3 Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 502. When the commander of the Yulin army heard Li Jiancheng's words, he was so frightened that he sat down on the ground and stammered, "Your Highness, are you kidding me?" Li Jiancheng looked at he said coldly, "Do you think I have the intention to joke with you?" When the commander of the Yulin army heard Li Jiancheng's words, he almost cried out of fright. He kept saying, "Your Highness, this is forcing the palace, but if you say something treasonous, you will lose your head. Once it is actually done, it will be a serious crime that will implicate the 9 tribes. There are senior officials and junior officials, so please show your respect and don't force me to do so." Li Jiancheng said nothing after hearing the words of the leader of the Yulin army, but the expression on his face seemed to be able to form ice. As for Wang Gui, Feng Li, and others, although they had strongly opposed Wei Zheng's proposal to force the palace, they also sincerely supported Li Jiancheng. Therefore, Li Jiancheng had already made up his mind and they supported him without hesitation. Especially since Li Yuan had already sent an order to let the crown prince enter the palace, he was afraid that even if Li Jiancheng could come out, he would no longer be the crown prince. So at this time, they and Li Jiancheng were all grasshoppers on the same rope. Seeing that the leader of the Yulin army did not agree, the murderous look on his face immediately radiated out. At this time, Wei Zheng stood up again and said to the commander of the Yulin army, Commander Chen, if you think that His Highness is trying to harm you, then you are completely wrong. Now His Highness has asked you to come and ask you to take the Yulin army's participation in this matter is a sign of trust in you, and it is also giving you a fortune. After all, with your Yulin army entering the palace, even if His Majesty does not want to agree, he will never dare not to give in, and as long as His Royal Highness the Crown Prince ascends the throne and takes the title as the Emperor, you are the hero who supported His Highness's ascension to the throne. Will your benefits be missed in the future? And since His Highness the Crown Prince has made up his mind, he will definitely implement it. Even if you don't agree, someone will definitely agree. It's just that you have to think about it. Wei Zheng stopped and kept silent after saying this, and the commander of the Yulin army could serve as the commander of the palace army in front of the emperor, so he was certainly not a fool. Hearing Wei Zheng's words, he looked up again and found that the prince looked at him calmly, while the rest of the people looked at him with a hint of amusement in their eyes. When the leader of the Yulin army saw this, his expression suddenly changed. He instantly understood that Li Jiancheng was determined to force the palace, and since he already knew their plan, he had only one choice, and that was to join. Otherwise, if they don't agree, I'm afraid they will never walk out of the East Palace alive. After all, they will never need an insider who is not aligned with them. And according to the sudden nature of their plan, His Majesty is certain that as long as he leads the Yulin army there, the Crown Prince will succeed. And just as the confidant next to His Highness the Crown Prince said just now, by supporting His Highness the Crown Prince and forcing him to ascend the throne, he has achieved the merit of following the dragon, and will naturally have many benefits in the future. Thinking of this, the commander of the Yulin army finally stopped hesitating, stood up immediately, knelt down to Li Jiancheng and said, I despise my position and swear allegiance to His Highness to the death. All the Yulin army will obey His Majesty's orders at any time. When Li Jiancheng saw Ren Zheng, he asked him to compromise with a few words. He was so happy that he patted Ren Zheng on the shoulder to express encouragement. Afterwards, everyone discussed countermeasures together. Feng Li followed Commander Chen back to summon the Yulin army, while Li Jiancheng went to Hanyuan Hall alone to meet Li Yuan. A moment later, in the Hanyuan Hall, Li Yuan looked at Li Jiancheng, who had arrived late, frowned and asked with some displeasure, I have announced that you are here to discuss matters a long time ago, how come it was delayed for nearly an hour? Li Jiancheng looked at Li Yuan. Naturally, he would not say that he had been threatening the commander of the Yulin army and planning to force the palace together. Instead, he looked at Li Yuan, took a deep breath, and asked in a low voice, I wonder how long it has been since my father took good care of his mother and queen. Li Yuan has been. While waiting for Li Jiancheng to answer what he had been busy with for so long, Li Jiancheng unexpectedly asked himself a question. He was stunned and then asked, what did you say? Li Jiancheng had already adjusted his mentality and said loudly, my son is saying that in the past few years, especially after he became emperor, my father has been leading troops to fight and has no time to spend with his mother. Now he has finally rested, but after becoming the emperor and being involved in government affairs, he still has no time to spend more time with his mother. I have heard my mother complain about this many times, so I dare to ask my father to stay with my mother at home from now on. Li Yuan understood Li Jiancheng's words this time, but did not think about forcing the palace. I felt that Li Jiancheng was a little strange today, so he asked in a deep voice, what do you want to say? He usually behaves very obedient and very capable, but why did he answer the wrong questions repeatedly today, and what he said was even more, Euro trademark-s confusing. Li Jiancheng's body was shaking involuntarily because of his nervousness, so he took a deep breath to calm down his nervousness, and then said, I dare to ask my father to abdicate. Li Yuan was very surprised after hearing Li Jiancheng's words. Thinking that his eldest son, who had always been very obedient, would actually say such a thing, he asked, have you drunk too much? Do you know what you are talking about? Li Jiancheng saw that Li Yuan did not take his words seriously at all, so he asked again. He took a deep breath and repeated, I ask my father to abdicate the throne. This time Li Yuan finally understood that Li Jiancheng was not joking, but was serious about it. He suddenly became furious and said, you are a traitor, you can't be satisfied even if you become the prince. How dare you come to force me to abdicate? You are the prince, and this throne will be yours sooner or later. I did na Euro trademark T expect that you could na Euro trademark T even wait for the last moment. I should have listened to the words of many ministers and not allowed you come and be the emperor. Emperor Li Yuan has been in office for a long time. As the saying goes, the qi of residence nourishes the body. There is an emperor's majesty in his movements. In addition, he is a strict father, so when he got angry, Li Jiancheng immediately shrank subconsciously. He raised his neck and was so scared. But then, Li Jiancheng argued, Father, you forced me to do this, but you can't blame me. After hearing Li Jiancheng's words, Li Yuan immediately became angry. He sneered and said, how dare you come to force me to marry you? Yes, I forced you to do it. I can't a Euro trademark T blame you. I can have such a good son with such strong words. At this moment, the leader of the Yulin army came to Hanyuan Hall with hundreds of Yulin army and brought them to Hanyuan Hall. Hanyuan Hall was surrounded. To read the ununderlined version of the novel, please download Fei Lu Xiao. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 503. However, it was said that the leader of the Yulin army broke into the Hanyuan palace without being summoned. This was originally a serious crime of being without a monarch and requiring beheading. However, at this time, Li Yuan was angry because of Li Jiancheng's forced palace. So I didn't notice these details. Without thinking, he said to the commander of the Yulin army, Commander Chen, you came at the right time. Hurry up and capture this unfilial and rebellious son for me. However, after Li Yuan finished shouting, the commander of the Yulin army did not even move. He moved, not taking Li Yuan's order seriously at all, but turned to look at Li Jiancheng. Li Yuan was not a confused person, but he just didn't think much because he was angry. Now when he saw the commander of the Yulin army not obeying his orders, but looked like he was completely following Li Jiancheng's orders, he instantly understood that he had betrayed him. Own. So Li Yuan stared into Li Jiancheng's eyes and said word by word, Li Jiancheng, I didn't expect that my most obedient son would actually do such a thing. Now you have even recruited the commander of the Imperial Palace Guard Yulin army under your command. Is it possible that you want to kill your father? Li Jiancheng naturally knew that just by forcing his father to abdicate in favor of a worthy man, he would hardly escape the records of historians. If he committed another patricide, he would probably have a higher reputation than Yang Guang and Qin Er. The world-famous Han Jun is even worse. So he shook his head and said, I don't dare. I just want my father to spend more time with my mother and queen. In addition, because I am afraid that the two elders will be lonely, and in order to protect the safety of the two elders, I will send 200 Yulin sergeants to guard my father's house by the side of the emperor and his mother. After listening to Li Jiancheng's words, Li Yuan stared at him and said that he wanted to accompany his mother. To put it bluntly, he wanted to put himself under house arrest, and the so-called protection was just surveillance. Perhaps the arrival of the Yulin army gave Li Jiancheng more confidence, allowing him to dare to face Li Yuan's gaze for the first time that night. But this time, the final winner became Li Jiancheng. And Li Yuan felt the persistence in Li Jiancheng's eyes, and finally sighed and said feebly, it doesn't matter, anyway, when I first selected you to be the prince, it was to pass the throne to you one day. Since you are so impatient, then I will make it happen. You can see with your own eyes how different the Tang dynasty will be under the rule of your son. In addition, I have no other requests. I only hope that after you become the emperor, you can spare the people of the world and not let the people of the world be spared. The tragedy of Caog's seven-step poem reappeared. After Li Yuan said this, he let out a long sigh, and his originally straight back no longer supported it, and instantly became like a hunchback, as if he had suddenly aged by more than 10 years. However, when Li Jiancheng heard Li Yuan's last words, his heart trembled and his whole body trembled, but he suddenly discovered that his father didn't know that he had killed Li Shimin. In other words, he summoned himself to the palace to discuss it. He wanted to take him down or dethrone his position as prince. What exactly happened, I am afraid no one will ever know. Li Jiancheng couldn't help but feel a little confused when he thought of this. If he hadn't been too nervous and preconceived the idea that his father came to him for Li Shimin's death, he would have discovered that he was wrong. If the father really wanted to punish him for Shimin's death, then how could he have been so kind when he first came in and asked him why he came to the late hour? If he really knew the truth, he should have already deployed troops and horses in Hanyuan Hall or the palace to capture him, and even directly ordered Commander Chen to lead the Yulin army to capture him instead of ask the eunuch to invite him over. Each of these incidents made Li Jiancheng feel that he had been too irrational just now. If he thought about it carefully, he would definitely think that his father did not know about Li Shimin's death, or that he did not blame himself. But what puzzled Li Jiancheng was why Liang Shitai didn't come to report him to his father. Is it because he hadn't had time to enter the palace yet? But no matter what, although Li Jiancheng regretted it at this time, since the forced palace has become a fact, even if he apologizes to Li Yuan and no longer forces the palace, it must be impossible. And when he thought that the throne he had dreamed of for many years was indeed in his hands, Li Jiancheng became even more excited, and all his worries and regrets were immediately forgotten. Later, Li Yuan abdicated the throne, and was guarded by 200 Yulin army soldiers and moved to the Deep Palace with the queen. They claimed to be accompanying the queen to take care of her in old age, but in fact they were just placed under house arrest by Li Jiancheng. At the same time, Li Jiancheng also arranged for the Yulin army officers to ambush in the palace. Once Liang Shitai arrived at the palace, he was immediately killed on the spot. However, after one night, Liang Shitai still did not appear in the palace. Early the next morning, all the civil and military officials of the DPRK came to the palace early, waiting for Li Yuan to come to court. At this time, after one night, many officials knew the news that King Qin Li Shimin was assassinated in a deep alley on the streets of Chang'an, and they were still discussing it on the way here. But when they arrived at the palace, they all closed their mouths and stopped talking. After all, Li Shimin was the king of Qin, and could be said to have the highest status among Li Yuan's many princes. He was not much different from Prince Li Jiancheng, so his death would inevitably arouse Li Yuan's anger. Once this matter continues to be discussed in the palace, Li Yuan will definitely be angry after hearing it, and even arrest the discussant for spreading rumors. Even after entering the palace, everyone did not dare to speak to each other. No one wanted to get into trouble with the emperor at this time and bring death to themselves. However, all the officials waited for a long time but did not see Li Yuan. Just when everyone thought that Li Yuan was dealing with matters related to Li Shimin's death, Prince Li Jiancheng actually walked out from behind the screen wearing a dragon robe and sat on the dragon chair. Seeing this scene, all the officials were extremely surprised. Looking around, they found that the people around them had expressions of surprise. They obviously didn't know what was going on, so they started talking involuntarily. Li Jiancheng didn't speak, he just squinted his eyes to look at the expressions of the officials below. Suddenly, he found Chang Sunwuji casting a suspicious look at him. Li Jiancheng was shocked when he saw this. He naturally knew that Chang Sunwuji was not only Li Shimin's confidant, but also his staunchest supporter. Could it be that he discovered that Li Shimin's death was his own fault, or that the reason why Liang Shitai, who had never appeared, did not come to the palace was because he told Chang Sunwuji about it first? Thinking of this, Li Jiancheng felt murderous intent in his heart. Feeler reminds you, 3 things about reading, collecting and recommending. 3 Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 504. Just when Li Jiancheng squinted at the officials and had murderous intentions for Chang Sunwuji, someone finally couldn't help but stood up and asked, "Your Highness, what are you doing this time? What do you mean?" The reason why Li Jiancheng remained silent was because he was waiting for others to ask him, so at this time he directly said, "My father ordered me to enter the palace last night. Because he was not feeling well, he passed the throne to me and talked with the Queen Mother. And spends his old age. So, from now on, I am the new emperor of the Tang dynasty." After Li Jiancheng finished speaking, the eunuch on his right took out a volume of imperial edict. Li Jiancheng pointed to the imperial edict and said to the officials, "This is my father's edict. If you don't a Euro trademark T believe the imperial edict, you can read it for yourself." In the ears of hundreds of officials, Li Jiancheng Euro trademark S words were by no means weaker than the impact of a bomb detonating in later generations. After hearing Li Jiancheng Euro trademark S explanation, all officials it exploded instantly. After all, Li Yuan was in the palace all day yesterday, and there was nothing unusual. However, in just one night, the emperor changed. Li Jiancheng, who had just become the crown prince, became the emperor less than a day later. What's even more coincidental is that just last night, King Qin Li Shimin was assassinated on the street. There was no witness and everyone died. I just don't a Euro trademark T know if there is any connection between the death of King Qin and the abdication of the late emperor, or which event came first and which event came later. But no matter how you say it, this matter is a bit strange no matter how you think about it, but the stupid people believe it is true and are about to give a big gift to Li Jiancheng immediately. The smart people guess the key but remain silent. However, there were a few people among them who were not very smart and insisted on exposing the matter. They pointed at Li Jiancheng and cursed Li Jiancheng, "You, a thief, dare to launch a mutiny and force His Majesty to abdicate. From this point of view, King Qin, his death must have been your doing. Aren't you afraid of retribution for doing such a heinous and unethical thing? Don't think that if you do it perfectly, the world will be deceived by you. No official in the court will allow it. You, a disrespectful person like you, are the emperor." Li Jiancheng himself knew that there would be dissatisfaction with his sudden ascension to the throne, so he was already prepared for such things. He looked carefully and found that the 2 people who jumped out to accuse him were all Li Shimin's confidants. He was overjoyed. He was just looking for someone to establish his authority when the 2 people bumped into the muzzle of the gun. So he suppressed the excitement in his heart, showed an angry expression, and shouted to the 2 of them, "How dare you, as ministers of the Tang dynasty, dare to speak to me like this? Come on, please treat these 2 unworthy ministers." The guys escaped from the Meridian Gate and beheaded them in public as a warning to others. After he finished speaking, Commander Chen of the Yulin army immediately grabbed the 2 men by their arms and dragged them out. Li Jiancheng used this killing blow, even if there were still people who objected, and they spoke out at the same time. Li Jiancheng looked at the official who was so frightened that he fell silent, sighed, and then explained, "I know that you naturally don't believe in my sudden ascension to the throne. Some people even think that I was responsible for the king's death and that I forced the late emperor to abdicate. Yes. In fact, have you ever thought about the fact that my father just made me the crown prince yesterday, and this throne belongs to me both morning and evening? Why should I be in a hurry and force my father to abdicate yesterday? And lead a Euro trademark S not talk about the relationship between me and the King of Qin. Compatriots from the same mother and brother, we have a deep love for each other. Just say that this is a critical period of war between the Tang dynasty and the Dragon Kingdom. How could I assassinate the King of Qin when the Tang dynasty was employing people? I only knew about the death of the king of Qin last night, and I feel deeply heartbroken, but I didn't Euro trademark T expect that the two people just ignored my feelings and even said that the death of King Qin was done by someone I sent. How can I not be angry? In addition, what I can tell you is that the late emperor it was because I heard about the death of King Qin that I became so anxious that I could not continue to handle the affairs of the government and pass the throne to me. I have also sworn to the late emperor to let him rest in peace and recuperate. I will definitely find the murderer of King Qin as soon as possible and bring justice to King Qin. Revenge. After Li Jiancheng said these sincere feelings, many officials who were originally neutral or hesitant immediately believed his words and made up their minds to serve Li Jiancheng. After hearing this, many of King Qin's confidants, who were originally very angry with him, became a little confused, not knowing whether what he said was true or false. But Li Jiancheng did not stop there, but wanted to use Li Shiman's confidants' loyalty to Li Shiman to transfer their hatred to the Dragon Kingdom. So he continued, after I sent people to investigate overnight, it can be basically confirmed that the Dragon Emperor guessed that King Qin would lead troops to attack Yangzhou and support King Qi and King Zhao, so he sent people to assassinate him. So I will definitely lead the assassination as soon as possible. The army goes south to destroy the Dragon Kingdom and kill the Dragon Emperor to avenge the King of Qin. Li Jiancheng's words successfully diverted the attention of some people. Of course, this did not include Chang Sunwuji. Originally, Chang Sunwuji only had some doubts that Li Jiancheng, who went out with Li Shiman, killed him. However, after Li Jiancheng became angry and had the cronies of King Qin killed, he was convinced. But now he was able to find out in such a short period of time that the person who assassinated Li Shiman was sent by the Dragon Emperor. This made Chang Sunwuji almost 100% sure that the person who killed Li Shiman must be Li Jiancheng. After all, when he learned that Li Shiman and Li Jiancheng went out together yesterday night, he asked Liang Shitai to find Li Shiman, and then went out himself. But after a whole night of investigation, except for finding Li Shiman's body, there was no clue. And if Li Jiancheng didn't know about it, he knew that Li Shiman's death must be later than his own, and it would be even more impossible to find out that someone sent by the Dragon Kingdom killed King Qin after such a long time. However, Chang Sunwuji was not an impulsive person. He knew that if he rashly stood up and accused Li Jiancheng at this time, he would most likely be silenced by Li Jiancheng just like the two people just now. So he hid the matter in his heart and decided not to make it public for now. After secretly finding the evidence, he joined forces with Qin Kaiyan, Yu Qigong, and others to avenge the king of Qin and rescue Li Yuan. After the dynasty was over, Chang Sunwuji already had a premonition that Li Jiancheng would not let him go, so he quickly returned to his house and said to his sister Wugu, "Go dress up immediately, change your appearance, and leave Chang'an." Chang Sunwuji listened. After hearing what his brother said, he quickly asked, "Is it related to the death of King Qin?" Chang Sunwuji knew that his sister had a quick mind, so he naturally didn't want her to know too much, so he urged, "Don't worry about this, go quickly. ETA Euro trademark S too late for a while. _ To read the ununderlined version of the novel, please download Fei Lu Xiao. Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 505. Chang Sunwuji saw that his brother was so serious and knew that the situation was urgent and could not allow him to think too much, so he said no more, nodded, turned and left. However, Chang Sunwuji had just helped Chang Sunwuji pack his luggage. Before the two of them went out, Commander Chen of the Yulin army surrounded Chang Sun mansion with 2,000 Yulin army generals. Chang Sunwuji couldn't help being shocked when he saw this scene, but then he thought about it. Although Li Jiancheng probably guessed that he already knew the truth about the death of His Highness King Qin, that's why he sent people to kill him to silence him. But he had no evidence. If he argued hard, he might have a chance to convince Commander Chen and escape with his sister. So Chang Soon Wuji took a deep breath, and surrounded by the dead soldiers of Chang Soon mansion, he came down to the courtyard and shouted to the commander of the Yulin army, Commander Chen, I wonder what is the purpose of leading people to surround my Chang Soon mansion. Then Commander Chen has always supported Li Jiancheng, and last night he led troops to force Li Yuan to abdicate. This has deepened his position in Li Jiancheng's heart, and now he is even more arrogant. He heard Chang Soon Wuji's question and snorted coldly, Chang Soon Wuji, don't pretend to be crazy here. After your Majesty's personal investigation, it has been found that the person who killed His Highness King Qin last night was brought by you. Your Majesty, there is an order, if you refuse to be captured, we will take you back for interrogation and leave you a way to survive. If you insist on resisting to the end, then don't a Euro trademark T blame our ruthless men. The entire Chang Soon family will definitely leave no one alive. Chang Soon Wuji heard this. When he said this, his eyes suddenly burst into tears, and he yelled angrily, Fart! Who doesn't know that my eldest son, Wuji, has always been a die-hard loyalist to His Highness the King of Qin? Even my sister has already been engaged to His Highness the King of Qin, how could I kill His Highness the King of Qin? However, Commander Chen already had a way to deal with Chang Soon Wuji's words. He said coldly, stop talking nonsense, according to our investigation and analysis, it was you who secretly colluded with the people of the Dragon Kingdom to kill His Highness King Qin. You know the reason in your heart. Chang Soon Wuji saw that the other party's words were ambiguous, but he seemed to have made up his mind to kill himself, so he said no more and let the dead soldiers in the mansion escort him and his sister out of the siege. Just when the cries of killing broke out in the Chang Soon mansion, Princess Pingyang Zhao Li Ziyuning was rushing to the Chang Soon mansion. When she heard a cry of killing, her face immediately changed and she rushed over. The reason why Li Ziyuning came to find Chang Soon Wuji was because she could not find her second brother Li Shimin. It turned out that although Li Ziyuning did not attend the morning court because she was a daughter, after the morning court, she heard that almost everyone in the court was talking about the news that her father had abdicated due to physical illness and let his eldest brother inherit the throne. Although Li Ziyuning is not involved in the fight for the crown prince between the eldest and second brother, based on her relationship with the two, she is obviously closer to the second brother, who is lively, cheerful, capable, and has a worldwide mind. As for the eldest brother Li Jiancheng, because he is relatively stable and has a gloomy personality, in Li Ziyuning's view, he is more like his elder, and he has dared to talk to his eldest brother since he was a child. So after learning that her father had allowed her eldest brother to inherit the throne, she was obviously a little unhappy and planned to go to her father to question the crime and to check on him to see if he was feeling well. The palace where Li Yuan lived was located in the deepest part of the palace, which was equivalent to the cold palace in the harem. It was usually inaccessible, and Li Jiancheng only sent a dozen people to take turns guarding it again. Li Ziyuning didn't think much about this. After all, the news she received was that her father was ill, so she thought that her father lived in a remote place to stay away from the mundane world and rest in peace, so she naturally had no doubts. It happened that the orders received by these dozen guards only prohibited the late emperor and the queen mother from leaving the palace, but did not say that others were not allowed to enter. In addition, Princess Pingyang had a special status, so they did not dare to stop her. So Li Ziyuning met Li Yuan easily. She originally thought that her father was unwell and must be bedridden at this time, but she didn't expect that when she came in, she found her father sitting at the table drinking tea. He seemed to be in good spirits, but a little uncomfortable. Happy. Li Yuan was a little surprised when he saw his daughter come in. After all, he was under house arrest here by Li Jiancheng, and there were people guarding the door. He thought that he would not be able to see anyone else. So after a brief surprise, Li Yuan was overjoyed and asked quickly, Ziyuning, why are you here? Didn't Li Jiancheng stop you, Li Yuan's words stunned Li Ziyuning, and then she explained her purpose of coming, and what exactly did Li Yuan say? Thing. After hearing this, Li Yuan couldn't help but sigh and said, "My father spent his whole life in the army, how could his body be as weak as he said?" The reason why he abdicated the throne was not all because of his forced concubine. After hearing Li Yuan's words, Li Ziyuning was immediately shocked. Shocked, he quickly asked, "Father, are you saying that your abdication was forced by your eldest brother and not of your own free will?" Li Yuan sighed softly, and then told Li Ziyuning everything about yesterday night, and Li Ziyuning was told to leave quickly before Li Jiancheng knew she had been here. Afterwards, Li Yuan was still a little worried and said, "You must be careful. Li Jiancheng has been confused by power at this time. After you leave, tell Shaiman about this as soon as possible and let him prepare in advance to prevent Li Jiancheng from attacking him." At this time, Li Yuan and Li Ziyuning did not know that Li Shaiman was dead. After all, the biggest news today was that Li Jiancheng suddenly ascended the throne and proclaimed himself emperor. Li Shaiman's death was rarely mentioned. In addition, the two of them had always stayed in the palace and had no knowledge of what happened outside the palace. When Li Ziyuning learned that her father was being forced by her eldest brother, she was furious. She immediately went to Prince Jin's mansion to explain the matter to her second brother and plan how to find out her father. However, after he came to Prince Jin's mansion, he did not find Li Shaiman. When he thought that Chang Sunwuji was the confidant of the second brother, he would definitely know the whereabouts of the second brother. Even if he didn't know, he would definitely be able to think of a solution if he told him about it. However, she did not expect that the Changsun mansion was already in chaos at this time, and all kinds of shouts of killing came and went. So she hurriedly ran to the gate of the mansion, and happened to see Commander Chen of the Yulin army leading the soldiers of the Yulin army to surround and kill the dead soldiers of Changsun mansion, while Changsun Wuji and his sister were hiding at the back. Li Ziyuning didn't care about Changsun Wuji's raising of dead soldiers. After all, in this war, any powerful family would raise some dead soldiers to protect themselves and their families. Seeing this, Li Ziyuning did not dare to rush in without knowing it, so she had to observe from the outside. At this moment, she suddenly heard Chang Sunwuji shouting, "Li Jiancheng, if you kill your brother and force your father, you will be punished." Fei Lu reminds you, 3 things to do when reading, collect and recommend. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 3 Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 506. Although Chang Sunwuji was the confidant of his second brother Li Shaiman, since the Yulin army was working here, Li Ziyuning did not act rashly without knowing the reason. But at this moment, with Chang Sunwuji's roar, Li Ziyuning could no longer wait. After all, she had just learned that her elder brother Li Jiancheng forced her father to abdicate. Now Chang Sunwuji said that he not only forced his father to abdicate, but also kill your brother. No wonder he didn't find his second brother. Could it be that his eldest brother not only forced his father to abdicate, but also killed his second brother? Although Li Ziyuning didn't know whether what Chang Sunwuji said was true or false, after all, the matter of forcing his father had been determined. As for killing his younger brother, he could only decide whether to believe it or not. So Li Ziyuning immediately rushed to the Changsun mansion, but was stopped at the door by the Yulin army guarding the gate. Although he did not enter the mansion, Li Ziyuning could already see the situation in the mansion. As the royal palace's forbidden army, every member of the Yulin army is a person with good martial arts, and they usually train hard, and they cooperate with each other very well. Although Chang Sunwuji's dead soldiers were extremely loyal to Chang Sunwuji's brother and sister, and each of them was brave and fearless of death, after all, they were still not as good as the Yulin army. In addition, there are many soldiers in Yulin, and there are only about 100 dead soldiers in Changsun mansion, so this cannot be called a battle at all, it is more like a massacre. The moment Li Ziyuning stood at the door, 3 or 4 people were chopped to the ground. As the imperial guards, the Yulin army naturally knew Li Ziyuning, so when Li Ziyuning came over, they were all stunned, but they still subconsciously stopped Li Ziyuning at the door and prohibited her from entering. Seeing this, Li Ziyuning twisted her eyebrows and said in a cold voice, "You are so brave, you actually dare to stop me. Are you willing to die? Why don't you let me get out of the way?" However, even in her capacity as a princess, Li Ziyuning suppressing the opponent, the soldier guarding the door still shook his head and said, "Your Majesty, Your Majesty's order, we came to capture the rebel Chang Sunwuji. Chang Sunwuji colluded with the people of the Dragon Kingdom to kill His Royal Highness the King of Qin. Your Majesty has ordered that the rebel Chang Sunwuji must be captured. He will be brought to justice, and anyone who blocks his path will be killed without mercy. Please, Your Highness Princess, please don't a Euro trademark to embarrass us." After hearing the words of the Yulin army soldier, Li Ziyuning's face that was already very angry immediately turned cold and grim. He said in one sentence, "Even if I am the princess, you still want to kill me without mercy. These a euro. After hearing Li Ziyuning's words, the person blocking the road didn't know how to reply. After all, she was a princess and His Majesty's biological sister. They really didn't dare to do anything to her, but if she was allowed in and Chang Sunwuji escaped, they would have to bear the consequences. His Majesty's wrath. Just when the 2 Yulin sergeants guarding the gate were in a dilemma, the commander of the Yulin army came over and said to Li Ziyuning, "Your Highness, please come back. Your Majesty gave me the order Sunwuji, whether life or death, at any cost." Li Ziyuning, after hearing this, her pretty face turned red with anger and she shouted angrily, "No matter life or death, if Lord Chang Sun is really colluding with the Dragon Emperor, he should not be left alive to go back for interrogation. I think Li Jiancheng just wants to silence him. Since you are willing to pay any price, then this matter has been decided by me, and I want to see how much you can pay at any cost." After speaking, Li Ziyuning pushed away the Yulin army soldiers blocking the door, and then forced his way inside. And when Commander Chen saw this, he was no longer polite. He pulled out his long sword and said to Li Ziyuning, "Since the princess wants to force her way in, I have no choice but to offend you. Come on, capture Princess Pingyang." Commander Chen, after saying that, several Yulin army soldiers who were surrounding the perimeter to prevent Chang Sunwuji's brother and sister from breaking out immediately rushed towards the door. Seeing this, Li Ziyuning shouted, "How brave!" Then the long sword came out of its sheath and flew up and down, knocking several people around to the ground. Then, with a slight step, he attacked the Chang Sunwuji brother and sister in the mansion. Rush away. Although Princess Pingyang Li Ziyuning was born as a girl, her martial arts skills were not weak. Some people in later generations even commented that half of the Tang dynasty was conquered by Li Shimin and the other half by Li Ziyuning. It can be seen that Li Ziyuning is by no means an ordinary lady or weak woman. Not only is she good at war, but she is also highly skilled in martial arts. With a sword in her hand, she is invincible to women. Due to Li Ziyuning's strong martial arts skills and her special status, although Commander Chen ordered her to be captured, it was only a capture after all, and no one dared to hurt her. As a result, the Yulin army, which had no physical advantage and did not dare to kill Li Ziyuning, was naturally beaten back. In less than half a quarter of an hour, Li Ziyuning rushed to the Chang Sunwuji brothers and sisters. Around. Li Ziyuning fought her way to Chang Sunwuji. Although she had many things to ask him, she also knew that this was not the time to speak, so she just said to them, "Follow me and fight out." Chang Sunwuji followed Li Shimin all the time. Naturally, it was known that Princess Pingyang had a better relationship with King Qin Li Shimin than Li Jiancheng. At this time, she took the risk and rushed to save herself. Following her out must be the only way to survive. At this time, nearly 100 of Chang Sunwuji's dead soldiers had been slaughtered by the Yulin army. Except for 2 or 3 people who were following them to protect them, the rest had all been killed. After receiving the Changsunwuji brother and sister, Li Ziyuning immediately escorted the two to break out of the house, and single-handedly resisted the Yulin army coming from all directions. However, although Li Ziyuning was highly skilled in martial arts, the brother and sister Zhang Sunwuji did not know any martial arts at all. They had just taken a few steps forward when the only 3 remaining dead soldiers had been killed. At this time, if Li Ziyuning continues to clear the way in front, Changsunwuji who is following behind will inevitably Beta Habayashi army killed them, so she had to protect her wings around the 2 of them. But as a result, the 3 of them could no longer move forward, and were soon surrounded by the Yulin army, making it almost impossible to move. When the leader of the Yulin army saw that his men had finally stopped the 3 of them, he no longer hesitated. He moved forward with his sword and stabbed Changsunwuji in the back. Seeing this, Changsunwuji didn't have time to say a word to remind him, so he hurriedly stretched out his hand to pull Changsunwuji, trying to pull her over to avoid Commander Chen's fatal blow. But just as he grabbed Changsunwuji's hand, Commander Chen turned his wrist and the sword instantly changed direction. Before anyone had time to react, the sword pierced Changsunwuji's heart. To read the ununderlined version of the novel, please download Fei Lu Xiao. 3 Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 507. Changsunwuji looked at the sword inserted into his chest in disbelief. The brief surprise made him forget the pain. Only then did he realize that the opponent had wanted to kill him from the beginning to the end. People are always themselves. After all, the reason why Li Jiancheng wanted to kill him was because he knew that he had guessed the truth about the death of King Qin Li Shimin, and even guessed that he became emperor by forcing him into the palace. Although Li Jiancheng has proclaimed himself emperor and possesses unparalleled power, his actions are indeed too outrageous. If the truth is known, it will definitely cause an uproar. Not to mention whether the people of Litang would recognize his position as emperor, but among the hundreds of officials, a large number of officials were devoted to Li Shimin. In addition to the rest of the officials, in addition to being devoted to him, Li Yuan also had many confidants. If they knew that he had killed his younger brother with his own hands and used a mutiny to force his father to abdicate, then one can imagine what Luan Cheng would do to the court. After all, in the entire Tang dynasty, only 1/3 of the officials who unswervingly supported Li Jiancheng were at most, while about half supported Li Shimin. Especially among the officials supporting both sides, there are great differences in the positions held by the officials. Most of those who supported Li Jiancheng were civil servants. They were deeply influenced by Confucianism and firmly believed that the crown prince must have his eldest son. But most of the supporters around Li Shimin are military generals. They are not bound by Confucianism and judge purely by emotion. Naturally, they appreciate people like Li Shimin who are loyal and responsible more. Among these people, such as Qin Kaiyan, Yu Qigong, Chen Yaojin, and others, they all have the courage to do anything. Once they know that they killed Li Shimin, they will inevitably rebel. However, with their minds, it is impossible to know the truth about Li Shimin's death for the time being, but Changsunwuji is different. He is extremely smart, and Liang Shitai may have told him the truth. If he told Yu Qigong, Qin Kaiyan, and others about this, the consequences would be disastrous. He might have been the emperor for just one day, but he would be kicked off the throne. Therefore, what Li Jiancheng was most worried about must be that Changsunwuji leaked the matter, so he sent the Yulin army to silence him. But he only thought of this now, and it was obviously too late. The other party's sword had already pierced his heart, and he would definitely not survive. Not only that, before he even had time to tell Qin Kaiyan and others the truth of the matter, he was unable to avenge King Qin, and his sister was also dragged down by him. When he thought of his sister, Changsunwuji was filled with strength. He ignored the pain in his body and moved forward bravely. He firmly grabbed the hand of Commander Chen of the Yulin army to prevent his sword from hurting his sister. Elder brother. The moment Chang Sunwuji was pulled over by Chang Sunwuji, he saw the enemy's sword piercing his brother's chest with his own eyes, and he immediately cried out in tears. However, Chang Sunwuji already knew that he was bound to die, so he dragged Commander Chen back like a flashback, and at the same time shouted to Chang Sunwujiao, hurry up. He believed that with his sister's intelligence, even though he had not clearly explained the truth about His Royal Highness King Qin's death to her just now, she would definitely be able to guess it and tell Princess Pingyang and all the supporters of King Qin. At this time, Li Ziyuning saw that Commander Chen actually killed Chang Sunwuji under his eyes, and his heart suddenly burned with anger, and he desperately stabbed Commander Chen with the long sword in his hand. Commander Chen's hand was killed by Chang Sunwuji. Holding him tightly, he couldn't resist with his sword, and he couldn't even dodge. He could only watch Princess Pinjiang's long sword slit his throat. Then, Li Ziyuning grabbed Chang Sunwuji, and without Chang Sunwuji, she could completely lead the eldest grandson Wu Jiao to slowly break out of the siege on her own. However, the eldest grandson Wu Jiao was not willing to leave at this time. At least, she had to take her brother's body with her if she wanted to leave. When Li Ziyuning saw this, she couldn't help but he shouted to her, come on, Master Chang Sun fought tooth and nail to create time for you to escape. You don't want his efforts to be in vain. If something happens to you, he will not rest in peace. Leave here first and avenge your brother later. Li Ziyuning's words were like a heavy hammer, causing Chang Sunwuji to wake up instantly and understand the current situation. He stopped being entangled and began to slowly follow Li Ziyuning out of the house. Although at this time, he was following Commander Chen. After being killed by Li Ziyuning, the Yulin army was leaderless. The attack was immediately chaotic and not as sharp as before. However, after all, they had nearly 2,000 people, which still put heavy pressure on Li Ziyuning. However, Li Ziyuning was not in a hurry. Without the burden of Chang Sunwuji on one side, and on the other side without a commander to direct the battle, they will surely be able to break out of the encirclement slowly. And as long as they leave Changsun Mansion and come to the streets of Chang'an, these feathers will Lin Jun would definitely not dare to kill people so blatantly, and if he could meet Qin Kaiang and others, he would be able to escape from danger directly. Just as the two of them were slowly moving outside the house, someone suddenly shouted outside the door, King Zhao is back. King Zhao is back. He is coming to Changsun Mansion. Everyone, run away. Originally it was just one person shouting, but as more and more people heard it, more and more people gradually heard the news that King Zhao was coming, so more and more people shouted. All the soldiers of the Tang dynasty. Everyone knows that King Zhao Li Yuanba is a monster with strong martial arts. Not only did he chase an army of 2 million people for a long distance, but he is also extremely powerful. More importantly, everyone knows that King Zhao, except his parents, just listen to the words of King Qin Li Shimin. If he knew that he was massacring Li Shimin's loyal ministers, then he would probably kill these 2,000 Yulin troops to pieces. Thinking of this, a kind of Yulin army suddenly disappeared and continued to kill. The courage of Princess Pingyang and the eldest grandson Wu Jiao disappeared in a hurry. Looking at the speed, they wished they could grow a pair of wings and fly out directly. Seeing this scene, Li Ziyuning was overjoyed, although he had always been a little bit dissatisfied with Li Yuanba for only listening to Li Shimin's words. They were dissatisfied, but only a little jealous, and absolutely not malicious. At this time, Li Yuanba's arrival could at least ensure that the two of them were safe. So Li Ziyuning hurriedly took his eldest grandson Wu Jiao out of the house, wanting to tell Li Jiancheng what he had done. Li Yuanba, but when she came out, she found that there was no sign of Li Yuanba outside the house. There was only a man dressed as a scribe, who was looking at her with a smile _face. Lu reminds you, 3 things about reading collection, recommendation. Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 508. When Li Ziyuning saw this situation, he immediately raised his sword in front of him and looked at the scribe with confusion and vigilance. Although she had the confidence before that she could slowly fight her way out of the house even without reinforcements, that would consume a lot of physical strength after all. And now she couldn't hold it any longer, and she really couldn't guarantee that she could always keep her grandson Wu Jiao safe, so she was so happy when she heard that Li Yuanba was coming. However, after leaving the house, he didn't see Li Yuanba at all. It happened that the scribe kept staring at him. How could he not be frightened? However, Li Ziyuning had martial arts skills after all, and ordinary enemies could not get close to him, let alone this seemingly powerless scholar. Therefore, although she was alert, she did not become frightened. On the contrary, with a sword in hand, Li Ziyuning felt very at ease, so she blocked her eldest grandson Wu Jiao behind her, stepped forward, frowned and asked, "Who are you? Where is King Zhao?" This person-faced Princess Pingyang pressed the question, but her face remained calm and her heart did not beat. She first bowed her hands to Li Ziyuning in greeting, and then replied in a neither humble nor condescending way, "Your Highness, I am a servant of the Prince of Qin. His Highness, Prince Zhao, is naturally in Yangzhou in the south of the Yangtze River at this time. Fought with the Dragon Kingdom." Li Ziyuning was even more confused when he heard what this man said, and he was also very suspicious of his identity, so he took a step forward, pointed his sword at this man and asked, "Since you are from the Qin Prince's palace, servant, why do you appear here sneakily? And just now, I clearly heard someone shouting that King Zhao is coming. Why was there no sign of King Zhao when I came out, and you were the only one here?" The man listened. Li Ziyuning replied with a smile, "The villain was a little worried because His Highness King Qin left the mansion yesterday night and has not returned yet, so he wanted to come to Lord Chang soon to inquire about the whereabouts of His Highness King Qin, but he didn't expect to happen upon this matter. And just now the villain heard only when Master Chang soon shouted did he know that His Highness King Qin had been killed by Li Jiancheng, and that Li Jiancheng had also seized the throne by forcing the palace. The situation was urgent just now, and the villain had no time to find General Qin, General Yuqi, and others, so he wisely mixed with them. They called King Zhao to come. In fact, they wanted to use King Zhao's reputation to deceive them. Fortunately, this trick worked. However, although these Yulin troops retreated, this was mainly because their commander was killed by Her Royal Highness the Princess. As a result, they were leaderless and could easily be scared away by villains. However, this matter must not be hidden for too long. When they return to the palace and report the matter to Li Jiancheng, the news of King Zhao's return will inevitably be revealed. Therefore, this place is not a place to stay for a long time. Li Jiancheng will definitely send people to hunt him down, and the princess is openly against him. I am afraid that he will not let the princess go lightly, and I also ask the princess to leave Chang'an with me." Li Ziyuning heard this person's words. It felt like there was no fault in all his explanations, and it was his quick wit that helped him escape danger. Obviously, this person could not be Li. And as a servant, he can be so quick-witted, and his mind is quite a bit like that of his second brother. What Li Ziyuning didn't know was that all the servants of the Prince of Qin's mansion would have been so frightened that they would have been paralyzed on the ground when encountering such a situation. How could they come up with such a good idea if they were completely helpless? Therefore, this person must not be as simple as an ordinary servant. This person is Wei Zheng. He heard that Li Jiancheng sent the Yulin army to kill Chang Sunwuji and silence him, so he hurried over to save him. After all, Chang Sunwuji's reputation in the world is relatively loud, and Wei Zheng has been in Chang'an for so long and has already gotten to know all the important officials of Litang. Therefore, he knows that Chang Sunwuji's talent is definitely enough to match his reputation. And since he has joined the Dragon Kingdom, everything must be considered for the Dragon Kingdom, and at this time he has completed the task assigned to him by Lu Feng, asking Li Jiancheng to kill Li Shimin, and is preparing to return to Yangzhou. Chang Sunwuji was loyal to Li Shimin wholeheartedly. At this time, he already knew that Li Shimin's death was caused by Li Jiancheng, so he would definitely find a way to avenge Li Shimin. As a literati, if he wanted to take revenge, the best way was to use the power of others. There were not many princes in the world who had enough power to compete with the Tang dynasty, but the Dragon Kingdom was definitely the strongest one. Therefore, Wei Zheng wanted to take this opportunity to persuade Chang Sunwuji to surrender to the Dragon Emperor Lu Feng. This would not only enhance the strength of the Dragon Kingdom, but also be a great achievement for himself. Since he has surrendered to the Dragon Kingdom, in addition to the tasks assigned to him by the Dragon Emperor, Wei Zheng naturally wants to make as many meritorious deeds as possible, so that he can occupy a place in Lu Feng's heart. It's just that he arrived a little late. Chang Sunwuji had been killed, and the illusion of meritorious service was shattered. However, Wei Zheng was not discouraged by this. After all, although Chang Sunwuji was dead, the two women in front of him were definitely not ordinary people. Needless to say, Princess Li Ziyuning of Pingyang was not only highly skilled in martial arts, but her ability to lead troops in battle was second only to Li Shimin among all Li Yuan's children, and even better than Li Jiancheng. Therefore, many people believe that if Li Ziyuning had not been born as a girl, the person who might have competed with Li Shimin for the crown prince position would not have been Li Jiancheng but Li Ziyuning. As for the eldest grandson Wu Zhao, although her reputation is definitely not as good as that of Li Ziyuning, Wei Zheng, after getting to know her over this period of time, also knows that she is also very smart. If she can go to the Dragon Kingdom, she will definitely be able to provide a lot of help to the Dragon Emperor. However, as Li Yuan's daughter, it is not up to Wei Zheng to decide whether Li Ziyuning is willing to submit to the Dragon Kingdom, but bringing her to the Dragon Kingdom, whether she joins or not, is better than staying in the Tang dynasty and becoming an enemy of the Dragon Kingdom. At the same time, the Yulan army fled back to the palace and reported to Li Jiancheng that Princess Pingyang suddenly appeared and left Chang Sun Wujiao. After hearing this, Li Jiancheng became furious and roared at the temporary commander of the Yulan army, "Trash, a bunch of trash, they can't even catch two weak women." After hearing Li Jiancheng's words, the temporary commander couldn't help but think in his heart, "Theta Euro trademark s just the eldest grandson Wogu, she is indeed a weak woman with no strength to tie a chicken. But Princess Pingyang is your biological sister. Don't a Euro trademark t you know how good her martial arts skills are? But I just thought about it in my heart. If I said it out loud, I would probably lose my head." After Li Jiancheng vented his anger, he wanted to discuss countermeasures with Wei Zheng. However, he looked around and saw no sign of Wei Zheng, so he asked, "Where is Ren? Go and call Ren Zheng for me." Watch the underlined version of the novel. Please download Fearless Yao. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 509. At this time, Li Jiancheng has regarded Ren Zheng as his trust, and he is also the last life-saving straw. Whenever there is difficulty, the first person he thinks of is Ren Zheng. Although his other confidants were a little dissatisfied with this, after all, after getting along with each other for these 2 days, they had already admired Ren Zheng. At least the method Ren Zheng came up with was something they couldn't think of at all, and even if they had thought of it, they would not dare to say it. And Li Jiancheng was very dependent on Ren Zheng. It was by following Ren Zheng's advice that he successfully achieved the position of emperor. Although as a prince, it would be a matter of time before he became emperor, but that would take a long time, and no one could tell what would happen in the meantime. However, it was precisely because Li Jiancheng relied too much on Ren Zheng that he became very irritable when Ren Zheng was away and others were helpless. Therefore, the ears of Wang Gui and others were filled with Li Jianquan's roar. This Ren Zheng is getting more and more outrageous. Every time I want to discuss matters with him, he is not there. Wait for him to come over and see what I do, teach him a lesson. After a long time, the man who was sent to invite Wei Zheng came back alone and looked very scared. Seeing this, Li Jiancheng hurriedly asked, "Didn't I ask you to invite Mr. Ren Zheng to come over? Why did you come back alone? Where are Mr. Ren Zheng and his family?" When the man heard Li Jianquan's question, he knelt on the ground with a plop. Said to Li Jiancheng, "Back to your majesty, I just went to Mr. Ren's mansion, but found that his mansion was on fire." When Li Jiancheng heard this, he was shocked and asked hurriedly, "There was a fire? What's going on? Then where is Mr. Ren Zheng?" The man replied, "Back to your majesty, the fire had already subsided when I went there. I waited until the fire was out before going in, but I didn't find Mr. Ren, but I found a quilt. The burnt male corpse." After hearing this, Li Jianquan's expression suddenly changed and he hurriedly asked, "Who is so bold that you dare to kill one of my trusted men?" Naturally, the man didn't know who the murderer was, so he had to remain silent. That's right, and the rest of the people didn't know anything about it. Seeing this, Li Jiancheng dismissed everyone, leaving only Shui Wanch, and said to him, "Since Li Ziyuning escaped, he will not stay in Chang'an for a long time, but will go to Li Yuanba to explain the matter. Li Yuanba, that little monster, has been around since he was a child. Just listen to the words of the second brother. If he knows that I killed the second brother, he will definitely kill Chang'an single-handedly, and with his force, Chang'an city will never be able to stop him. So you go to Yangzhou immediately and let Li Yuanji think we must find a way to kill Li Yuanba, and set up ambushes at various checkpoints from Chang'an to Yangzhou. We must ensure that Li Yuanba is eliminated before Li Ziyuning." After hearing Li Jianquan's order, Shui Wanch suddenly felt something in his heart. He felt that ever since Li Jiancheng followed Ren Zheng's advice and forced Li Yuan into the palace, after becoming the emperor, he seemed to become more and more ruthless, so he said, "I obey the decree." At the same time, under the planning of Li Ziyuning and Chang Sun Wujiao, they finally successfully escaped from Chang'an and got rid of their pursuers. At this time, eldest grandson Wujiao turned back to Chang'an city, thinking that his brother had just died trying to save him, and now he could never go home again, and he didn't even give his brother a chance, and he felt a little desperate. 2 lines of clear tears fell down Chang Sun Wogu's face, and then she wiped them away with her hands. After a moment, she turned around, looked at Princess Pingyang, and asked, "Where should we go now?" Li Ziyuning was also originally because of the eldest brother killed the second brother, forced his father to abdicate, and later wanted to kill herself. She felt very confused, but when she heard Chang Sun Wujiao's words, her eyes instantly became firm. She said to the eldest grandson Wujiao in a deep voice, "Go to Yangzhou, find Li Yuanba, and tell him about the death of the second brother. Now only he can avenge the second brother and rescue the father." The eldest grandson Wujiao sighed softly when he heard Li Ziyuning's words. He breathed a sigh of relief. His eldest brother had just died, and he felt helpless. But compared to Princess Pingyang, what did his experience mean? Although the eldest brother is dead, at least he knows who the murderer is, and this murderer is his eternal enemy. No matter what, he will find a way to avenge his eldest brother. But what about Princess Pingyang? Her second brother is dead, but the murderer is her eldest brother. If she has the chance, she can kill her enemy without hesitation, but what about her? Will she kill her eldest brother? Compared with herself, what happened to Princess Pingyang was the real misfortune of her family. She didn't care about anything. She felt sorry for her second brother who died. To avenge her second brother, she had to kill her eldest brother. No matter what she did, she would definitely live in pain. So Chang Sun Wujiao looked at Li Ziyuning and asked softly, "Your Highness, Princess, Are you really going to find Prince Zhao to kill your eldest brother Li Jiancheng and avenge your second brother? From Chang Sun Wujiao's own point of view, she naturally, I hope that Li Ziyuning can do this, not only because this can also avenge his eldest brother, but more importantly, he can avenge King Qin. Just as Chang Sun Wuji said in defense to the commander of the Yulin army, she already had a marriage contract with King Qin Li Shimin, and in a few days, she would be able to marry King Qin. But these things happened suddenly, causing her not only to lose her eldest brother, but also her fiancé copyright. So if Li Ziyuning was really willing to let Li Yuanba kill Li Jiancheng and avenge Li Shimin, she would be really excited, but she didn't want Li Ziyuning to regret it, so she reminded her. Sure enough, after Chang Sun Wujiao finished asking, Li Ziyuning closed his eyes and fell into silence. After a long time, when the expression on her face changed from pain to determination, she finally opened her eyes and said firmly, from the moment he forced my father to abdicate, he was no longer my eldest brother. From then on. From the moment he killed my second brother, there was no affection between him and me, only hatred, so you don't a Euro trademark T have to worry about me being sad. I will definitely avenge my second brother after. Li Ziyuning said. Wei Zhengxi suddenly felt a little lucky. Fortunately, Princess Pingyang didn't know that it was Li Jianquan's idea to kill Li Shimin, otherwise she would be in the tiger's mouth at this time. However, although he thought so, he did not forget the situation at this time. After Li Ziyuning finished speaking, he immediately continued, Your Highness, if you can think of going to His Highness King Zhao, Li Jiancheng will also think of it. So he did not catch it at this time. In order to prevent things from leaking out, we will definitely let someone design to kill King Zhao, so we must arrive in Yangzhou before him. Fei Lu reminds you, 3 things about reading, favorite, recommend. 3 Kingdoms, I have a job transfer palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 510. Wei Zheng's analysis was reasonable. Not only did he grasp Li Jianquan's character very well, it was very consistent with the current situation. This also made Li Ziyuning's pretty face change color after hearing it. So Li Ziyuning didn't care about the exhaustion from the battle just now, and said nervously, without having time to rest in this case, let's not waste time on rest, let's go quickly. Time is life, after all. Li Yuanba has no influence on the great changes that have taken place in Chang'an. Without knowing it, there would be no defense against Li Yuanji and others. If he planned to kill Li Yuanba, it would be difficult for Li Yuanba to escape given his intelligence. And Li Yuanba is currently the only person they can rely on to avenge Li Shimin. Therefore, only when people who rush to Li Jiancheng arrive in Yangzhou and tell him what happened can there be a chance of a comeback. Yangzhou is far away from Chang'an. Even the straight line distance is more than 2,000 miles, not counting the detours required when passing rivers or cities on the way. Because the incident happened suddenly, neither Li Ziyuning nor Chang Sun Wujiao had time to prepare. Fortunately, after Wei Zheng settled them outside, he returned to Chang'an city alone and bought 3 horses, which gave them a means of transportation. Otherwise, according to the speed of manpower, even if Li Ziyuning had martial arts skills, he would not be able to travel 100 miles in a day. By the time they arrived in Yangzhou, Li Yuanba's body would have been reduced to a pile of bones. Originally, Wei Zheng was working in the prince's mansion, but now he burned down his own mansion and faked his death to escape. He shouldn't have returned to the city at this time. If someone caught him, he wouldn't be able to defend himself. Fortunately, he has always kept a low profile when working under Li Jiancheng. Apart from providing advice to Li Jiancheng, he has almost no contact with others. Therefore, only Wang Gui, Shui Wanch and other Li Jianquan's core confidants knew about him, and almost no one else had heard of Ren Zheng. This gave Wei Zheng the opportunity to return to the city to buy horses. However, Precisely because he did not dare to be too public and kept a low profile when buying horses, he did not dare to go to places that sold high-quality horses. Therefore, the horses he bought were just ordinary horses that could run 300 to 400 miles a day. In this regard, Li Ziyuning, as a princess, often rides horses to fight, and has relatively high requirements for horses. However, these 3 horses are much worse than her previous horses, and it is inevitable that she will feel a little disgusted. But she also knew that the current situation was special. Firstly, it was good to be able to buy a horse. Secondly, he thought that Wei Zhen was just a servant. Although he was a bit quick-witted, he might not know a good horse, so he didn't have much hope. And having a horse is better than not having one, so after Wei Zhen came back with the horse, the 3 of them immediately set off and galloped non-stop towards Yangzhou. In the past few days, outside Yangzhou city, the battle between Li Yuanba and Lu Feng had not stopped. The two would fight for 2 to 3 days in a row almost every time, and then rest for 1 day before fighting again. Originally, the officers and soldiers of both armies were amazed at Lu Feng and Li Yuanba's extraordinary strength and energy. However, as the number of such battles between the two increased, almost everyone was no longer surprised by this. Not only that, in the first few days, not only the soldiers of both sides, but also generals such as Zhao Yun and Huang Zhong had been watching the battle between the two, hoping to learn some experience from it. But later, because the same battle happened every day, they naturally stopped paying attention. After all, the battle between the two of them was too painful for their ears. Now, every time the two fight, only Li Yuanba fights on Li Tang's side, followed by more than 20 people as messengers, while on Lu Feng's side, only Dian Wei leads 10 red-blooded dragon riders. Li Yuanba has been stronger than his peers, even adults much older than him, since he was born. Therefore, he has never fought against an opponent of such strength, so every battle is hardy. But Lu Feng has always been very casual. After all, he is much higher than Li Yuanba. In order to be able to support Li Tang's army and give Wei Zhen enough time to complete the task, he has only used 50% of his strength. Therefore, in the eyes of others, the battle between Li Yuanba and Lu Feng was a battle between rivals and talents. Li Yuanba also fought with all his strength to fight happily, but Lu Feng didn't even break a sweat. On this day, after the two men fought non-stop for 3 days and 3 nights, Li Yuanba felt hungry, so he made a temporary truce with Lu Feng and agreed to fight again 1 day later, which Lu Feng naturally did not refuse. Li Yuanba was in a good mood after just going through a big battle. When he returned to the camp, he still shouted happily when he saw people. After he returned to his tent, he was preparing to have someone bring him some food to have a big meal, and then have a good sleep to prepare for the next day's battle. But before he could call someone, a herald came in and said to Li Yuanba, His Royal Highness King Zhao, just now His Highness King Qi heard that you had returned from the war, so he prepared a banquet in the Chinese army's tent and invited you to come. We're going to a banquet. When Li Yuanba heard this, he didn't think much about it. He hadn't eaten for 3 days and was so hungry that he felt like he could eat a whole cow. At this time, Li Yuanji hosted a banquet for him, and he was naturally happy. So Li Yuanba jumped up from his seat with excitement and said to the herald, The third brother did really well today. I was hungry here and he asked me to eat. This is like an elder brother. Let's go, you lead the way. After Li Yuanba finished speaking, without waiting for the herald's reply, he picked up a pair of drums, urns, and golden hammers and prepared to walk out of the camp and go to Li Yuanji's place for dinner. Seeing this, the herald hurriedly stopped Li Yuanba and said, His Royal Highness, King Zhao, why are you bringing a pair of sledgehammers with you when you go to dinner? You are not going to fight. Besides, your hammer is so big, His Highness King Qi has already prepared it for you. There is no place to put the hammer after the food and drinks. If you drink too much and throw the hammer there, Won't it delay your fight with the Dragon Emperor if you can't find it tomorrow? In my opinion, you can put the hammer here, no one can pick it up or throw it away anyway. After hearing what he said, Li Yuanba thought it was right. What's the use of holding the sledgehammer for eating? It can't be used as chopsticks, and this big hammer can't be used as chopsticks. Hammer onites 400 kilograms, and no one in the army can pick it up anyway. So Li Yuanba casually threw the sledgehammer to the ground. With a loud bang, 2 big holes were made in the ground of the tent, and then Li Yuanba walked out of the tent. But before he could go out, he was stopped again. The herald said, "Your Highness, you have just fought for 3 days and 3 nights, and Wan Liun has not eaten for 3 days and 3 nights. Now that you are going to the banquet, you don't know when you will be able to finish eating. Why don't you go feed the horses first?" To read the ununderlined version of the novel, please download Fei Lu Xiao.